quiet power of relationships. Why who we walk with shapes the road. When I look back over 50 years of living, I see a trail of moments, some shining bright, some shadowed, but the most meaningful ones almost always have one thing in common. Someone was there with me. A friend, a teacher, a stranger who became something more. Relationships, I've learned, are the threads that hold our lives together. And the quality of those threads can change everything about how the pattern looks when you stand back and see it as a whole. The bright moments, the times of triumph and celebration, are amplified by the people who share them. The shadowed ones, the times of loss and confusion, are made bearable by the people who stand in the dark with you. It's in those quiet moments, in the shared space of joy or pain, that the true fabric of a life is woven. I wasn't always good at relationships. When I was younger, I thought the goal was to collect as many friends as possible. Like baseball cards, the more I had, the more successful I felt. My 20s were crowded with people, coworkers, classmates, drinking buddies, casual friends I'd meet at concerts. There was a sense of social currency to it all. I'd walk into a crowded room and feel a rush of satisfaction seeing all the faces I knew. All the people who would clap me on the back and say my name. But if I'm honest, many of those connections were thin. More about being seen than truly known. We were all busy being impressive. Busy building resumes. Busy trying to look like we had it together. The conversations were a constant competition of who was the most interesting. Who had the most exciting plans. Who was on the fastest track to success. We talked at each other. Not with each other. It was a lot of noise and very little substance. It wasn't until my early 30s, when I went through a messy breakup, that I really saw which friendships mattered. The people I thought would show up didn't. The ones I had spent so much energy trying to impress vanished like smoke. Instead, it was a few quiet, steady friends. The ones I hadn't invested much energy in because they didn't offer a lot of social fanfare, who came through. There was Sarah, a friend from a book club I rarely attended, who just sat with me in silence for hours when I couldn't speak. A mug of tea warming her hands and the only sound being the ticking of a clock. There was Mark, a coworker I barely knew outside of the office, who cooked me meals for a week, sliding them into my fridge without fanfare, with a simple note that said, "Eat something, M." They didn't give me pep talks or tell me to move on. They just stayed. They understood that the point wasn't to fix my sadness, but to sit with it. That experience changed me. It taught me that real relationships aren't about the people who light up your phone on your birthday. They're about the ones who come sit with you when your world has gone dark. That quiet, unasked for support was a more profound gift than any grand gesture could ever be. As I got older, I became more intentional about who I let into my inner circle. There's a saying, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. At first, I thought that was just a catchy self-help line. But I've seen it play out in real life. When I spent my nights with people who complained about everything, work, politics, the neighbors, I found myself doing the same. We were like a sad little echo chamber, amplifying each other's grievances and frustrations. My whole energy felt heavy, bogged down by the weight of their discontent. Then, I began spending time with a different kind of crowd. A group of guys who were building, dreaming, and doing. One was starting a small business. Another was training for a marathon. And another was learning to play the piano just for the joy of it. Their conversations were about what was possible, not what was wrong. My own energy shifted. I found myself thinking more creatively, feeling more motivated, and seeing the world not as a source of problems, but as a source of opportunity. Relationships aren't neutral. They either pull you forward or drag you down. And sometimes they do it so subtly you don't notice until years have passed. I remember one coworker, back in my 40s, who changed the way I saw teamwork. His name was Dave. We were on a high-pressure project with an impossible deadline. The whole office was tense, and tempers were fraying. The late nights and high stakes had everyone on edge, but Dave had a gift for diffusing tension. He'd crack a small joke at just the right moment, or remind us all to take a breath and get some fresh air. One night, at 2 a.m., when a bug in the code had everyone ready to throw their laptops, he walked over to the vending machine, bought a bag of chips, and tossed it to a frustrated colleague, saying, "Eat this, you can't debug on an empty stomach." He wasn't the smartest person on the team, but he was the glue that held us together. He understood that a team isn't just a collection of skills, it's a collection of people. That experience taught me that in any group, at work, in families, in friend circles, there's usually someone whose quiet strength keeps everyone from falling apart. I started asking myself, am I being that person for someone else? Or am I the one making things heavier? I realized I wanted to be more like Dave. Relationships also teach you how to grow. When I became a father, I thought my job was to teach my kids everything I knew. But half the time, it's been the other way around. My daughter taught me a patience I didn't know I had when she went through a year of refusing to eat anything but peanut butter sandwiches. Every meal was a battle of wills, but her stubbornness forced me to find a new level of calm I didn't think I possessed. My son taught me resilience when he got cut from his soccer team and decided to practice every day until he made it the next season. I watched him go out into the backyard after school, every single day, to kick a ball against a wall until the sun went down. He didn't complain, he didn't whine, he just worked. That taught me more about determination than any lecture ever could. Children are like living mirrors. They reflect your moods, your fears, your habits, sometimes painfully so. That reflection forces you to grow up right alongside them. And then there's marriage. I've been married long enough to know that romance is just the appetizer. The main course is learning how to live with another flawed human being while they learn to live with you. It's not always pretty. There are arguments over who left the lights on, moments of miscommunication that can spiral into cold silences. But there are also small moments, laughing over coffee, holding hands in the grocery store, that become the foundation of something solid. A good relationship doesn't erase your rough edges, but it does polish them a little, like stones in a river smoothing over time. It's not about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone who is willing to work on their imperfections alongside you, and for whom you are willing to do the same. Now, at 50, I've learned that relationships need maintenance. They don't run on autopilot. I make it a point to call my oldest friend once a week. Even if it's just for 10 minutes. We might not have anything big to talk about, but hearing his voice, sharing a 10-minute slice of our lives, keeps the connection alive. I write notes to my kids and leave them where they'll find them later. A simple, "proud of you, son," on a sticky note on his mirror. Or, "thinking of you," on her pillow. I tell my wife thank you for the little things, even if it's just making the bed or remembering to buy my favorite brand of coffee. These aren't grand gestures, no skywriting, no Instagram-worthy anniversary surprises, but they're the kind of daily investments that keep the thread strong. It's a quiet, consistent effort that says, "You matter to me." Today, not every relationship lasts, of course. Some friendships drift apart. Some people you have to let go of because holding on hurts more than the loss. That used to devastate me. I'd replay conversations in my head, wondering what I could have done differently. Now, I try to see it as part of the rhythm of life. People come into your story for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. The trick is to be grateful for each, no matter how long they stay. I had a friend once who was a constant critic, a person who always had to one-up my successes and point out my flaws. It took me years to realize that his presence was making me a smaller, more fearful person. The day I finally had to let go of that friendship was painful. But it was also a liberation. It created a space for healthier connections to grow. Looking back, I realized that the moments I cherish most aren't the big promotions or the vacations. They're the nights spent talking on a back porch until midnight, The hospital waiting room where a friend squeezed my hand and said nothing. Because nothing needed to be said. The dinners where my whole family laughed so hard we couldn't finish the meal. If there's one thing I'd pass on to anyone younger than me, it's this. Pay attention to who you walk with. Life is too short to fill it with people who drain you or keep you small. Find the ones who challenge you kindly, who cheer for you sincerely, who hold you accountable when you need it. Be that person for others too. The road is long, and sometimes hard, but with the right people walking beside you, even the steep climbs become bearable, sometimes even beautiful. So here's my quiet advice. From 50 years of trial and error, choose your people well. Tend to the relationships that matter like you tend a fire on a cold night. Let go of the ones that burn too hot or go cold no matter how much kindling you add. At the end of the road, when all the noise fades, the quality of your relationships will be the measure of your life. Make sure it's a measure you'll be proud of.